To our 11 subscribers and anybody who just found this on accident, welcome to the newest episode of the Wild and Crazy Guys SNL podcast. Joe Wayman, Brendan Green here to bring you our thoughts on the third episode of the 46th season of Saturday Night Live. And we have a lot of thoughts on this week's episode.
We do. I want to open up by saying I'd like to offer Paul McCartney $5,000 to come on our podcast next week. So, Paul, the offer's on the table. I got the cash. Just let us know, and we'll make it happen.
And I will match that offer if we can get every living member of the Beatles to reunite on our podcast. Paul, you can give Ringo less if you want to. It's up to you. But if the two of you show up together, I will match that offer up to 10%.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah, that's $5,500 for those of you doing the work at home. Issa Rae and Justin Bieber were our host and musical guest this past Saturday. Joseph, why don't you get us started with kind of the rundown here?
Well, we, of course, at the cold open, which is now is just boilerplate, lets us do politics, which makes sense to a degree. And I think that, what we said last week echoes this week. It was just way too long. But kind of a rundown of it. I thought early on they went hard at Biden, which was, maybe not hard at him is the right word, but definitely I thought we're critical of him in some ways. And I texted you even like, are they trying to overcorrect this stuff? But then they switched over to Trump, and no, they were pretty definitely a lot harsher on Trump, which has kind of become the standard situation. But the back and forth was a fine idea, but it just dragged out so far. I'm just trying to some notes I have down here of this of like the flirtatious woman with President Trump from the town hall meeting. That was kind of just weird and I thought forced in there. The part about WrestleMania when like Savannah Guthrie and Trump were seems like with chairs. Like they had 35 bits within the cold open. It's like just pick one and do it well.
It was interesting because I just, for the heck of it, searched the SNL hashtag on Twitter just to see what people were saying. And overwhelmingly, people are in agreement of it's just too long. You've got to shorten the cold open. To your point, we don't need 97 different bits in the cold open. Do a couple that are funny. The other part that felt really, really forced to me was Maya Rudolph as Kamala Harris. It was almost like a hey, we've got her, we have to use her in some way. It didn't fit. It wasn't particularly funny. I'm not even sure what she did. But that cold open, it's not a great start to a 90-minute comedy show.
Yeah, it's like you're throwing a bunch of stuff at the wall and hoping something sticks. And that to me is why are we doing this? You have Alec Baldwin, you have Jim Carrey. Just give us some good centralized 7 to 8 minutes and move on. It was just too much. Like even getting into like the Bob Ross and Mr. Rogers stuff, which is topical, I get, but like it was just so many different bits within it, and it was too long. I think you said 12 minutes. I believe you said was the open. I had 19 minutes with the open plus the monologue plus opening credits. So again, 20 minutes. That's a good chunk of the show with very little of the current cast featured.
Yeah. And I think with the talent that you have on that cast, including Alec Baldwin, including Jim Carrey, including Maya Rudolph, there's no reason you have to just throw stuff at the wall and hope something sticks. These are all professionals, very funny professionals. In some ways, I feel like it's almost kind of lazy.
Yeah. So then on to the monologue. We had, and she references, Issa Rae referenced how nervous she was. You never can tell, like, if they're just saying that or like what it means, because these are entertainers. They've been in situations like this before, but she genuinely seemed nervous. And I thought it was kind of refreshing because like that was to me what like the host for a first time is normal. Like obviously some of her jokes were just not great. She didn't land them great. But I thought her nervousness was genuine, and I thought it was kind of a nice callback to like, this is what the monologue should be, not just a stand-up bit by a stand-up comedian.
I found it to be quite endearing. I don't know Issa Rae. I don't know her work, but her monologue, while it wasn't particularly funny, got me on her side. I was rooting for her for the show. Whereas, as we said last week, I was kind of actively rooting against Bill Burr. I was very pro Issa Rae this week.
So our opening sketch was a Canadian broadcast from. Well, they said like they're from Montreal, but there's also bits from Toronto as well. In which basically the whole premise of the show was it was very highbrow politics, except when they cut away to see if Drake was. It had a Drake the sightings on the street with Issa Rae playing an on the street news reporter. I didn't get this sketch. I don't know if there's some inside jokes. Even stuff about bagels, I don't get. Like, I know Montreal has good bagels and New York has good bagels, but I didn't quite get it.
I actually texted you with a very simple question. Is there a reference here that I'm missing? Because for the entire sketch, I just didn't know what was going on.
Maybe our listeners could help us out there. If listeners have any, is there some inside joke here that we missed out on?
According to our YouTube stats, we're huge in Quebec. We are huge in Quebec.
I could see that. But I thought Bowen Yang was good in this sketch. I think we talk about him a lot as a guy who gets used, not always well enough, but I thought he was good in this. But I just thought it was in general kind of just like, what was the point of this?
I guess I should just say, in general, I never want to take away from the talent of this cast. There's a lot of really funny people on the cast. I think it's more of the content they're being given, and it just wasn't funny. They put their heart and soul into it. It just wasn't particularly amusing.
Well, it's the thing too about like, how does the show operate? How do they function? Like, was this a sketch that's been in the books for like a year and a half, 2 years now, and they couldn't find the right time to utilize it? That, to me, I always wonder about that, because like this sketch was not written for Issa Rae. It was not written with her in mind. So it wasn't like a thing of like, oh, let's have this, like, this was brewing on Monday at the table read or Tuesday, and just this has probably been someone's back burner for a while, and they pitched it this week and it stuck this week. But it just seemed to me it wasn't really, it didn't flow with the show. It didn't land. But like, yeah, the writing was okay, the acting was good. It just didn't click on all the parts I thought it should click on.
And spoiler, because they'll be on for 4 weeks in a row at least, we were surprised to find out that they are new next week. I think you're going to see a lot of that kind of stuff next week too. Just kind of some sketches thrown in there. It reminds me for our watchers our viewers who may have watched Letterman, and Joe, you and I used to talk about this all the time. The Friday night shows were always taped on Thursday afternoon. And so the monologue and the opening thing was never terribly timely information on the Letterman show. It was always kind of just general stuff because it was taped earlier. And I think just out of the fact that there's only so much you can write, you're going to see more sketches as they go more and more weeks in a row that are not necessarily topical or time sensitive.
Yeah, and you can catch more of that commentary on our other podcast, Will It Float, the Dave Letterman podcast that we do. Maybe we'll bring that podcast back shortly.
Will It Float?
We then move on to the first digital short, which was 5 Hour Empathy, and kind of a spin-off of 5 Hour Energy. It gave a white middle class couple a dose of empathy, which they claimed they wanted, but when it came down to it, they didn't really want to drink the drink, and so they didn't take it. I thought it was a good idea, had some good lines, so I think this was above average bit. I thought it had more potential, but I thought it landed some good lines and had some good commentary.
I think it was. I think much like the cold open, it was just a little too long for me. But I think that it was also an excellent idea, and topical.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think it was a good execution in that. We then had a sketch, the first date sketch with Issa Rae and Chris Redd on a first date, and they were out eating outside as one does right now, more than usual. And walking by was at first it was like a can collector or a homeless person played by Kenan Thompson, and you and I were both pretty excited when he came out there.
Kenan, you and I both thought that Kenan was going to save this sketch and just run it because, as we say every week, when Kenan wants to be the MVP, Kenan will be the MVP. And he did. Yeah. He for me was the highlight of this sketch. Everything after Kenan was kind of
Yeah, the Pete Davidson playing like a karate guy. I don't get how that fit into it. Was he like a restaurant worker? I don't quite get why he was just walking by. And then Bowen Yang playing like one of those like robots or a Tin Man robot on the street. That was fine, but it just kind of fell flat. And even at the end, when Chris Redd's former girlfriend came by as well, it just kind of it got hollow.
Yeah.
I texted you. I think the part I found most fascinating was they kept the camera on a little bit long after the sketch ended, and so you saw like them kind of breaking down the set and transitioning. We like that stuff. That was kind of fun to see, but to me that was the highlight.
I'm always, and we're going to try to get someone at some point who has been to a live taping of Saturday Night Live as a guest on the podcast. But I'm always fascinated by looking at the logistics of Studio 8H and how they break things down, how they set them up. And so those little 30-second glimpses, I love them. I just love them.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about our recap of our holiday party a couple years ago, but they had like a to scale model at that exhibit of the studio, and watching it and people said that have seen it like that. It's very hard to like go see it live because you don't see much of the show because it's kind of a chaotic like mess down below. But to me, watching that part would be part of watching the magic and watching the sausage get made. That'd be kind of fun.
I agree.
But it's really kind of cool to watch that part of it. We then had Justin Bieber performing, and Justin Bieber just numerous times on this show, and kind of a different vibe from Justin Bieber on both of his songs, really. I think a cool thing about this show is there's artists that you and I probably don't follow much, but we see glimpses of them like this. But seeing Justin Bieber kind of evolve over the years, I'm not saying I like his music necessarily, but I think watching him evolve has been kind of fun. And this was a pretty grown-up version of him, I'd say.
I'm not necessarily a believer in any way, shape, or form, but I found, and I texted you this as well, Justin Bieber's performances on Saturday both got A+ from me. I thought both songs were great. I thought his performances were great. Last night, I even found myself listening to the songs on Apple Music just because I thought they were pretty catchy and well written. And I so enjoyed Justin Bieber on Saturday. I really did.
Kind of had a gospel-y soulness to it. There was a cross in the background, and I didn't really pay attention to the lyrics too much, but it seemed like that was kind of a soul vibe. And then, of course, he brought out Chance the Rapper, who is a rapper, but he also does some stuff with soul and gospel. So there was some crossover there. Now, a fun fact here, both Chance the Rapper and Justin Bieber have played double duty before on SNL as the host and musical guest. So kind of a cool coalescing of those two guys having done that. And I did a little research for you, and now we got a trivia question for you, Brendan. The trivia question is brought to you by Stamps.com. Go to Stamps.com, use the code word Wild and Crazy Guys for 0% off your order at Stamps.com. Who was the first person to be both musical guest and host? Now, I think I read there was 33 times this has happened. And it's going to be a little bit surprising, I would say. Well, actually, no, I don't think it'll be that surprising. But
I can tell you the first person I remember being a host and musical guest, but I need to think if it would have happened before that person. My guess, my first memory of double duty is Britney Spears.
Yeah. No, it goes way back. It goes way back. Season 1, actually. Season 1, we had Desi Arnaz.
Paul Simon, perhaps?
No, Paul Simon was in second, but Desi Arnaz was the first. He hosted and sang Cuban Pete with help from his son, as well as Babalu on the 1975. First season.
Now, did he allow Lucy to be in the show?
I don't know. I'd have to look more into that a little bit later on. Now, Paul Simon was, of course, in season 2. Paul Simon, I think, is probably the most to have done this on a couple occasions. But yeah, so Desi Arnaz was the first. Paul Simon was the second.
I remember distinctly Britney Spears, but I think that's because I was probably about 16 or 17 at the time and was a huge Britney Spears supporter. I remember her doing double duty, but that's
so she did it twice. She did it twice. Her and J-Lo both did it twice. Justin Timberlake did it 3 times at that. So Britney Spears did it in 2000 and 2002. But there were none of them from 91 till 2000. No one did double. And there's been quite a few since then happening. I think last year we had We had, I think, was it Childish Gambino? No, 2 years ago. It was Childish Gambino. But we've had a couple over the years. But Desi Arnaz was the first. None announced for this season, but I think that'll change at some point in time.
That's a great fun fact. That's an excellent fun fact.
Yeah,
As I said, my pick, I still say at some point this season we will see Taylor Swift do double duty.
Okay, I think that's a good guess. If it's to be anyone this year, I think she's probably the guess, at least as of right now. That could, of course, change going forward. All right, so we then move into weekend updates, which to me was just, I thought Che and Jost were just fantastic. I thought they're getting so good together. I know there's an article in this week about Colin Jones kind of referred to like his career winding down. Not saying that he's done this year, but like just understanding that at some point in time he has to walk away. Kind of made some people concerned about that, but he's been there for 16 years. I was surprised by that fact, most as a writer, but of course now as update host and head writer. I thought their jokes were fantastic. They made a reference on NBC, showing pictures of Matt Lauer, Bill Cosby, and President Trump. I thought that was kind of a cringeworthy moment, but Che loves to lean into those cringeworthy jokes pretty hard.
They strike me as the two cast members that have the most fun. They just seem to really enjoy what they're doing, and I think that adds to update. When they're on, they can't be stopped. And this week they were absolutely on. It was just delightful. It reminded me of really, really, really enjoying update back in the day when our close personal friend Norm used to be the host. Just because there were cringeworthy jokes that they just played along with, and boy, big high five to Jost and Che for this week. And actually, I got to tell you, you know what I really liked? Where in the world is Aidy Bryant? I really liked her out there. That was funny.
Jumping ahead a bit of my notes on this, Aidy Bryant, 80 in America was the bit, and she was kind of looked like in a field of cows with really no purpose whatsoever, except just to probably tie her in. She's off filming a show, and so I'm sure they just wanted to get her some screen time and say, can we just do this quick bit? And it was no harm, no foul. But Aidy Bryant had an appearance. We haven't seen her much this year. We also had the Trump siblings were in the studio. This to me gets old really quick. I think it's kind of funny. There's some good lines here and there, but and bringing Tiffany into the equation was just like, it added nothing at all.
The fact that they called Tiffany not Vanka was pretty funny to me.
That was the highlight of Tiffany for sure, in my mind. A couple of references, jokes, I thought that were great. They had something about Colin Jones using a deep voice to like play up a joke, and Michael Che said, was that blackface? I thought that was just fantastic, a great joke, and those two have a good rapport with that notion of Colin Jost being kind of like a middle class white guy, and Michael Che being a black guy from New York City, and just kind of they like to go each other on that pretty hard. So I thought that was a pretty good joke.
I agree.
And Heidi Gardner playing Carla. This was not needed for me. It didn't do anything for me, and it was just added more time.
Yeah, didn't love Carla.
No. So, and that's what Heidi Gardner kind of has that corner of, they just throw her in there in some random get up and motif, and she just kind of goes with it. She's good in that role, but this one to me didn't hit.
She's really good at just kind of female characters who are just kind of off. That's kind of her strength in a lot of ways, and she plays them very well. I just didn't particularly need Carla.
Yeah. Coming out of update, we had Your Voice Chicago, a news panel type show with J. Lewis Tibbs, played by Kenan Thompson, and then Issa Rae and Ego Nwodim playing the panels. And they went through a list of candidates, and basically Issa Rae tried to convince all of them they should always vote for the black candidates, regardless of how much baggage they may or may not have. I thought it was a good idea. I think it got clumsy towards the end. But years ago, SNL was dragged for its lack of diversity. And so seeing this to me is like, I think is them kind of flexing their muscles on their cast and who they have at their disposal to use in places like this.
Yeah, you make a great point, because for so long it was almost Seinfeld-esque with the amount of negative response SNL would get about a lack of people of color, and so it was nice to see a sketch like that. You know, the sketch was fine. The sketch was fine with me. It was fine. I didn't necessarily. I don't believe I laughed out loud, but I didn't hate it.
Yeah, like I said, I think early on it was kind of fun and catchy. Then it got really weird. Chris Reds, when he was having a town hall at like a strip mall, that was kind of, I thought, a bit too much.
Yeah,
Now I know
it was
Kanye did
about dry
comment.
cleaners, I believe.
Dry cleaners, you're right. Kanye West did actually, I think, chime in about the show, but I didn't read the whole detail of it. But the fact that Kanye didn't like it probably means there's something good going on at SNL in regards to diversity.
I know this is going to surprise you, but I have slight issue with all of Kanye's opinions are not always the most objective.
Not coming from the best place, I don't think either. But we digress there. Now, Kanye West,
No.
did he pull double at any point in time or no? No, he was a musical guest. I don't think he's ever hosted the show. I could be wrong though.
I know he's been a musical guest. I don't remember him being the host.
Yeah. Okay. So we then have another digital short with Kyle Mooney kind of dancing in the hallway. I don't know. This one to me was just very weird and didn't do a whole lot. And I know they like to play Kyle Mooney playing this awkward guy who thinks he's kind of hip and with it. Didn't really land, but we did have our appearance of the new guy. He made his appearance into this bit.
All of the Kyle Mooney rather digital shorts like this make me think that there's an inside joke amongst the writers and cast as far as who Kyle Mooney is or what he does that I'm just not in on. Because as you said, he always plays the same kind of goofy character, or maybe they know something I don't know because it's just kind of a one-trick pony on a lot of those shorts.
It goes back to when he was dating Leslie Jones in those sketches, and it just kind of snowballed, and they kept doing it. Even Lauren appeared in some of those. I don't get it. So there must be something there that we don't know about, because why are they keeping on doing this?
Yeah.
I didn't quite get it. But again, the new guy did make an appearance in this bit, so good for him. We then had Bieber's second performance, which I thought was a good. They started off in the dressing room, and he kind of worked his way through the bowels of the studio, eventually making it on stage. I think
I will offer you the lyrics of that song are really they're very good. If you had asked me 10 years ago, will you ever give any type of musical compliment to Justin Bieber? My answer would have been, of course not. Why would I?
Yeah.
I'm really impressed by him on Saturday.
Yeah, it was good. And I always like it when they show the hallways and the back areas, because I don't think you appreciate how tight it is, how small it is, how like cramped it is, and how hard it is to pull this off. And it's really not like a palatial, like, nice place. It's very cramped and very condensed, but it's historic though to see all those pictures and see all the stuff.
I think even when you're in New York and you walk past 30 Rock or you go inside of 30 Rock, you're stunned because you picture it having to be just a much, much larger building than it is. It's a big building, don't get me wrong, but in my mind, I always picture like, well, if you got all these stages and all these studios in there, it has to be just much larger than this. But always good insight to see how the stages work.
Yeah. We then had our last sketch of the night. Or was Bieber? No, Bieber wasn't last, right? There was a sketch after him, right?
Yes.
Yeah. We had Jack Flat's, kind of a casual dining restaurant. And Jack Flat, of course, had to pivot to curbside takeout and contactless stuff. And we have a group of militiamen who miss going to Jack Flat's and expressing their discontent with Jack Flat's having to modify their business model.
And a reference to the kidnapping plot of the governor of Michigan, which okay, all right.
So what I didn't get, maybe this was missed, but like I thought the acting was great in this. I thought the writing was well done too. I thought the observations they made were really good. But why were they whispering the kidnapping plot part? Were they trying to keep that low key, or like was there something that they're really kind of cowards when it comes? I didn't get why that was like that.
I couldn't figure it out myself. It was a sketch that was a perfect 11:55 sketch because I It was silly, it was goofy, and it left me saying, I'm not 100% sure what I just saw.
Yeah, but I thought the acting was good. I think Andrew Dismukes had his first sketch appearance, to my knowledge, in this one. I thought he did a nice job. I thought the acting was good. The delivery of the lines was good. I just didn't quite get what the joke was ultimately. And even like bringing on like the waitress from there was kind of just felt forced. So I thought it was like a fine execution. Just I didn't quite get the premise.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Now closing it out, we had another digital short, which was it Amazon or eBay or both? I think
Both.
it started.
It was a
Oh,
joint
okay,
effort.
yeah, they had people buying things at the start of quarantine, thinking that they're going to change their life and learn how to play guitar, buy an elliptical runner, and then realizing that they didn't want this before the quarantine. Why did they want it during the quarantine? I thought it was really clever.
If you couldn't relate to this digital short and you didn't enjoy this digital short, I admire you because I related to every second of it. And I just thought this is absolutely, when the guy said 7 months ago, I was going to, whatever, learn how to play guitar. But then I sat on my couch and looked at my phone and now all of a sudden it's October. I, yes, I hear you. I know. I was dead on. Really, it was, as they say sometimes in comedy, it's funny because it's true.
Yeah, yeah, no, it was well done. There were some references, some jokes I thought were just fantastic, and it landed very well. This was an idea that they probably had cooking for a while, and waited for the right time to show it, and it was just really clever, really well done.
Yeah, I liked it. Good finish.
And probably doing it in that way was probably the best way. They probably could have done it as a sketch, but I thought doing it this way was easier. It was simpler and just better.
Cleaner.
Yeah, for sure. So that was it. We then had the closing credits. Observation wise, again, no 80 on this, no Cecily on this. I didn't notice a whole lot else going on at the credits.
I didn't see Baldwin anywhere, but I could have missed him.
Yeah, I can't always tell with the mask, but yeah, he did not seem to be there, at least not front and center, at least early on. So nothing to report there. Now you referenced earlier, we got a fourth episode in a row next week. That was kind of a curveball, huh?
Yeah, I didn't see that coming. I thought they'd take the week off, but it looks like we've got Adele and HER. And I don't know HER, but I know Adele, certainly. Adele, I'm surprised she's not doing double duty, but she is hosting.
Yeah. HER appears to be a single person, Gabriella Wilson. It's pronounced her. You don't say HER. It's an acronym for having everything revealed. Don't know what that means, and maybe I'll find out. Maybe I won't. She rose to fame by participating in Radio Disney's Next Big Thing in 2009. So don't know much else about her, but we'll see. We'll see more of her this week.
What grade would you give this Saturday's SNL?
Well, we neglected to do this last week. We didn't give grades out last week. Do you want to give out last week grades first, or do we have to forget about last week?
Yeah, last week, Bill Burr would receive a C- from me.
I was the same way. I kind of wanted to go D plus, but there was some stuff at the end that helped salvage it, at least a tad for me. So I was with you on C-. So for this week, I'm gonna go B-. I thought it really early on. I was really not very optimistic, but it picked up at the end and just got kind of stabilized. And it's weird to say this, but probably even without Bieber, I maybe go to a C+. I thought that his music was. We shouldn't maybe factor it into grading, but I will. So I'll bump it to a B-.
I'm sticking with just a solid C. It's one of this episode was a student who did absolutely no work in the first half of the first quarter, just didn't turn anything in, failed all the tests, and then the second quarter turned it on and just really did a nice job of raising the grade. So solid C this week. Definitely, I would say definitely better than last week, but an average show.
And I gotta say, we I don't know. We have to go back, and I don't know if we've had 4 weeks in a row. 4 weeks in a row is very rare. So I'm eager to see how they handle it. I do wonder how much of the fact that there's the debate this week that factors into any of it, and they'll probably take off then for Halloween, and then come back. But who knows? Maybe they'll go 5 in a row at this point.
It's going to be interesting to see if they take off for Halloween. SNL is a pretty politically based show, and so
especially recently,
yeah, I would think they would want to be all systems going into election week. So I would think that Halloween off would make sense to me.
Yeah, and if that is the case, I think we will then be perhaps having a Halloween episode or maybe an election episode. We can figure it out coming up, but
something to find out.
Forward to. Yeah, and definitely some special content for our Patreon followers. Perhaps we could have some side conversations about Halloween sketches.
Yeah, I hope everybody's been signing up for Patreon. Right now, we're at a very solid 0 subscribers, but there's a lot of extra content there. Just make sure to get your discount. You use the promo code NORM for our Patreon.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this episode. Joseph, anything you want
to add? No, I'm looking forward to 4 weeks in a row. We'll see what Dell brings. We've had a great show. Thank you to Brendan Green, and we'll see you next week. So you got the music going on now.
Say goodnight, Joseph.
Good night.